Hey guys, my name is Mason Moran. Making this video, it's going over some veteran affairs stuff and your veteran benefits. Making this video because there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of service members, at least I serve in the Navy, and a lot of the sailors don't understand what benefits they have when leaving the service. And they kind of really miss the boat on that one, and they don't get to share in all these pretty good benefits if you can take advantage of it while you're in the service and then right before you leave. So we're going to go over this. It's a two-part video, so just follow along with me and feel free to leave any questions you got in the comments, and please like and subscribe. So here we go. I always like to start on why it matters. We all like money. At least I assume most of us like money. So here's the pay charts for your disability rating and your situation and what you can get. If you look here, there's a 10 and 20% rating. This is a monthly stipend that you get for being disabled from the military service. If you come down here, you can see without children, just the veteran alone, if you're getting 100%, that's $3,000 a month, which is substantial. It's like 36 grand a year that you don't have to. And I might add that these are tax-free benefits as well. So it's very beneficial to get ahead of this while you're in. Someone in my position, this was created a while ago. I have 3 kids now. So someone in my position is going to be around, if I'm 100%, it's going to be around $42,000 a year, untaxed. Significant. I'm an E5 in the Navy, so it's about what I make already before taxes. So it's substantial. If you look here, you got your kids under 18. So if you have a child, you're looking here at $33.52, and every child after that you're adding this much. Now some people might look at this and be like, what about this over 18? That's if you qualify, right? So if your child is living at home and going to school, as in a college, you're entitled to get compensation for them. I think it's up to 21. I'll have to look that up. And additional for AA spouse, we'll go over that later. So there's additional benefits as to why it matters. So you can get increased education benefits. We'll talk about that, GI Bill and whatnot. There's more to it than just the GI Bill. You have an advantageous mortgage and grants to adapt your home if you're qualified. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the VA loan. We're probably going to do several videos on that alone. It's a very complex loan, but it's one of the best out there if you're looking to get into your first home. People even use it for investing, so it's good for that as well. Hiring preferences for disabled vets. You may have heard of something called a veteran's preference, especially with GS positions, federal positions. You can use what's called your veteran's preference. If yourself or someone who had never served before, if you have equal qualifications and they don't know who to bring in, you can throw in your veteran's preference card and use that. And they're required by law to hire you for that. Now, this does not mean if you're underqualified and let's say like the job requires a degree with 6 years of experience and you only have a degree in 1 year, the other guy has a degree in 6 years. You can still try to use it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the job. It doesn't throw out the other person's qualifications. It's just if you're evenly matched or they don't know, you can use that. They're required by law to hire you. There's job training programs besides going to school. We'll talk about that later in the second video. There's life insurance, healthcare, and memorial services. A lot of people don't realize that there are memorial services or healthcare or life insurance for that matter. So we'll go into those. That's all going to be the second half of the video. The second video, excuse me. So VA math is really complex. It's not like normal, 50 plus 50 does not equal 100. So this link right here, I'll put it in the description as well. It's going to be on the next slide, and I'll show you how to compute those numbers. So that link will take you to this, and it looks kind of funky on here because I had to fit it on one slide. It's realistically two tables, so you get 19 to 62 is one table, 63 to it's going to be 99, but it won't fit on here. So what you do is you take, let's say you have depression and anxiety that get rated at a 70% rating, and then you have sleep apnea that requires a CPAP machine that's generally a 50% rating. So what you're going to do here is you're going to come and find your highest one, which is a 70% rating we already talked about, and go all the way down to your second highest, which is 50. And where they match is 85. So you're 85% disabled. This is a really quick overview, so it's not necessarily always going to be like this. Let's say that's the only things you claim, right? It will round up to a 90% rating for you. So generally, you have other stuff in there like no-brainers, like tinnitus. You should be claiming tinnitus. It's a 10% rating. You can't get more than that for it, but it bumps you up to 87. In this case, it doesn't matter. In some cases, it does, especially when you start stacking these 10, 20, or 20 and 10% ratings here and there. So there's a lot of myths that revolve around the VA and the disability system. I've heard this one so many times, it makes me want to pull my hair out that I can't work if I'm disabled. Can't work if I'm 100%. And that's just simply not true. It's a myth out there that keeps people from applying for 100% disability. It's really sad. You can work if you're 100% disabled. Like a lot of lies, there's some truth to it though. So there are a few caveats here. If you were a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL and, you want to try to get back in that work and you're disabled for a missing limb, and the military deems you unqualified to do that work, you're certainly right. You can't do that work anymore. But if you're like me, you work on computers and, your knees hurt really bad, your knees ache from a PT injury, yeah, you can still do that job on the outside. There's nothing requiring you to run generally for those kinds of jobs. And the other one is if you're 100% disabled for unemployability. That is the only caveat where you should not be working if you're 100%. If you have asked the VA to give you a 100% rating because there's just no way on this earth that you can ever be employed again. There's an agreement there that you will not be employed again. It's kind of simple, right? Other than that, there's really no restrictions on what you can and cannot do. I'm not as bad off as someone else. I don't need disability. That's just, well, it may be true, and it's quite a noble way to look at things. It's not going to benefit anyone, to be honest with you. Like all government entities, a lot of us should know that, right? If there's money left over, it will be spent. So you never hear that there's money left over. They budget for these kind of things. The VA does that when you enter the service. They figure how many people are entering, they budget for it. Just because you're getting 100% does not mean someone else can't get 100%. That's just not how that works. It's just not how it works. So please don't feel like you're taking from your brothers and sisters when you're applying for a disability. That's just not true. I would only get 10%. It's really not worth my time. You don't know that. That's really one. It's not really your call to make that because it's the Comp&Pen. It's called a CMP exam. And the physicians will determine that for you. But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of things on there that will get you 10%. Like, for example, ringing in your ears will get you 10. If you have any sort of aches and pains, that's generally 10 to 30. If there's an underlying condition, it just skyrockets up. If your knees hurt for bilateral subluxation, that goes up, and it's not hard to prove or to insinuate that came from service-related conditions. I don't have a disability. Again, this kind of matches the one we just talked about, but it's really important that we discuss this because I feel a lot of people say this, and I've seen a lot of people say this because there's a stigma to having a disability. A lot of people have the image of a disabled war vet, as Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. You're homeless, you're in a wheelchair, you're miserable, and you hate life. It's just not the case. It's just not the case. Having a disability is not something to be ashamed of or afraid of. In fact, you probably do have one. A lot of people do, especially if they've ever deployed. I can almost guarantee you have one. You just don't know it, or you don't think it's that bad, which we're going to educate you on that. So, stick by and we'll talk through it. I won't be able to join the reserves if I have a disability. This may or may not be true. Again, it depends on your job, and it depends on your rating, and it depends on numerous factors. If you're trying to be a Navy SEAL and you can't run, you're not going to be a reserve SEAL. It's just not going to happen, guy. But again, if you're trying to do my job, as long as you don't have 100% a disability, you can generally stay in the reserves. So, receiving my VA disability comp will reduce from my retirement. Ooh, yes and no. Yes and no. So if you are retired from the military and you have less than 30%, I believe it is, they might have bumped it up to 40. If you have less than 30% or 30% or less, it will be reduced from your retirement. However, because veterans compensation is not taxed, it's actually a net gain to you guys. However, if you're going, if you have over 30, let's just call it 40, let's just call it 40 and above percent, it's actually in addition to your retirement. So, and if you stay 20 plus years, chances are you're pretty high up there. It's just a matter of fact as you're getting older. Even some of the desk jobs like a yeoman, because of PT stuff and deployments, they have more physical requirements than their civilian counterparts. So, and sometimes things happen and, you get injured and you just don't think it's that bad, and it really is. So that there is some truth to that, but it's not what you think. It sounds a lot worse than it is. It's too late. I left active duty forever ago. Again, there's actually no time limit on when you can put in a disability claim, ever. A disability does not make you helpless. This goes back to that stigma. A lot of people think it does. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. So, and getting compensated for your service to the military after you've left and you're injured is also not a bad thing. Your civilian counterparts have workman's comp. The military does not. That's what the VA system is for. And the other thing is I can only use my VA loan once. This is absolutely not true at all. It's also not true that you can only have one out at a time. Absolutely not true. We are going to have a whole slew of videos about the VA loan because it is complex. And if you use it properly, you can really hook yourself up. So there's types of disability compensation here. One is the disability compensation. It's tax-free that we talked about. It's a monetary benefit paid to people with disabilities who are veterans. Anything that is, here's the book definition: result of disease, injury incurred or aggravated during military service. Essentially anything that can be related or possibly related to military service, you can claim it as a disability. It's generally expressed as a percentage. So, hey, I'm 90%, I'm 70% disabled. It just kind of tells people where you're at in the pay scale and what your ratings are for each thing. Dependency indemnity compensation, excuse me. It's a monetary tax-free benefit for surviving spouses, children, people who died on active duty. It's or service-connected disabilities. You see all those mesothelioma commercials, or used to. That's people were getting money from that, from the VA, their children and their spouses. So this isn't necessarily for you guys, you veterans, but it is for your significant others. Special monthly compensation, additional tax benefits paid to veterans, spouses, surviving family for special circumstances or specific disabilities. So if you require a nurse, to help you around the house, that can be considered special monthly compensation. Erectile dysfunction is one. I don't know why, but it is considered a special monthly compensation, or 10%. So if you're at 100 already, you can add it as a special monthly pay. So there's several of these. We'll provide a list in a later video, or maybe in the comment section. There's a huge list of special monthly compensations. Claims based on special circumstances. Think of Agent Orange. That is a special circumstance that only a certain number of veterans were exposed to, and they get a special compensation for it. Another is this automobile allowance. If you have to, you're wheelchair bound and you need a lift now, there are special allowances to adapt your vehicle to allow you to do that. Clothing allowance, if you have to have specially made clothes for you for something like that. For a disability, then you can get help for that. Again, those are a few examples. It's not all of them. It's not an all-encompassing list. All right, we're going to talk about the Code of Federal Regulations, 38 CFR 38. Okay. It's just like the military, right? Everything is in black and white and documented somewhere. This is the how to, or the how the VA will rate your disability claims. This document called the CFR, or Code of Federal Regulations 38, Book Charlie, Schedule for Rating Disabilities. Now, the frustrating part about this is it's not all in one book. It's all, you have to download each subsection, which is incredibly frustrating. I'm working on scanning mine in. I've compiled it all into one document. I'm working on scanning it in. It's going to be on our military business networks Facebook page for people to download. But for example, if you're looking for something for dental, you have to download the dental book. If you're looking for something in like knee pain, you have to download the musculoskeletal book, and that's a huge book. You have to kind of go through that and find where it's at. The CFR is organized by body parts and numerically. So like the disease of the ear would be the section, and then your code within there is the 6260, which is tinnitus, ringing of the ears. There's going to be a link to all the books, all the subsections of Book C in the comments. And again, this is just a how-to guide for your part of the claim. Here's an example of the CFR. This is for migraines. Again, working on computers. Myself and a lot of my coworkers actually have migraines from staring at screens all day. But here's where we're talking about the how-to guide. So here's your code, 8100. It's migraines. And here's the characteristics that your medical record must reflect in order to get X. So for me, I get them on average of once a month. I actually get them more than that, like 3 or 4 times a month over the last several months. If it's in your record that you have prostrating attacks, so there's a lot of wordsmithing that goes on in these books. Look up those words. Prostrating attacks just means it's incapacitating. It means you can't do your normal work. So while we think of incapacitating, we think of not being able to do anything ever. It's all applicable to your job. So can you still do your job? For me, I stare at monitors all day and it hurts really bad. No, I cannot do my job when I am getting a migraine. They're that bad for me. But I just have it in there like, hey, it hurts so bad. The screen gets blurry. That's called an aura. You get an aura. And it happens on average of 3 to 4 times a month. And it's happened for years now. So it's in my record, and that qualifies me for 30%. Severe economic inadaptability. This just means that it will really have a severe effect on your job. So like for me, it probably would, but it's not bad enough for me to say, hey, I can never do my job if this happens. If I were to become a civilian and do the same job, right, and I'm looking at a screen, if it happens often enough that they would consider firing me because I can't do my job, that's when it goes to the 50% range. When you're getting up to severe economic inadaptability, generally people start talking about unemployability ratings. So just keep that in mind. So preparation of your medical records, you just want to make sure that this is not for so much for veterans, but people currently on active duty or in the reserves. Make sure it is in your record. Go to medical as often as you can if you're in need of medical care. Do not try to tough it out. Medical is free for you while you're in, and if you don't retire, it's the only time it will be free for you. So go when you need to go. Go. If it bothers you, make time to go to medical. So, you know, my stepdad's retired Air Force, and he always said, you know, if you're not 100%, you need to go in. For the simple fact of just putting it in there, even if it's that simple. Hey, I don't know what you guys can do. I think I just need to tough it out, but it needs to be in my record. Cool. And then your records should match your disability descriptions. So if we're like, you know, talking about migraines, I asked them to put in my record that they're characteristic prostrating attacks happening X times a month. That way there's no confusion. When I go to submit a claim, it's going to say right there, you have prostrating attacks, and it happens on 1 or more times a month. And don't be afraid. This is, you're in the military, right? It's the only time in the military really where you, as say an E4 or an E5, can tell an officer, no, that's not how it's going to be. This is my medical record, and put this in there. You know, as long as it's truthful. Like you can't just go and, you know, tell them like, hey, put that I have cancer in there if you don't have cancer, right? But if they're not doing what you're asking them to do and it's reasonable, then it's the only time where you can fire them. Say, hey, you know what, doc? Thanks for everything, but I think I'm going to find a different healthcare provider, and you're entitled to that. It's in your medical bill of rights. So just keep that in mind. Those doctors are there to work with you and for you, not the other way around. So, and I've never found a healthcare provider who did not help me out with putting it in the record to match that. And I've been very straightforward with them. Look, I'm not trying to Jones them. I'm not trying to, you know, game the system. It's just, I've heard horror stories of veterans not getting it exactly in writing like this, and they're totally understanding. Yep, sure, we'll do it for you. When you go out to medical, when you go into medical, there you have your record, which is your medical evidence, right? So when you do your claim, there are 2 types of evidence. There's medical evidence and lay evidence. Think of like layman's terms. Medical evidence is things that your record reflects from a healthcare provider and what your Comp&Pen exam finds. So an example, like it says here, would be a sleep study in your medical record for sleep apnea. Another would be me going in constantly and saying I have migraines still. That's medical evidence. Layman evidence or lay evidence is non-medical professionals. So what we talk about here is people who are not a nurse, a doctor, or work in a hospital or a care center, who will go to bat for you and say, look, hey, this guy had sleep apnea. At least the symptoms of it, he was snoring on the ship. He was always tired. He slept for like 12 hours, and he said he didn't feel like he didn't get enough sleep. Or, you know, in my case, like, hey, I know this guy has migraines. There are times where he has to go put his head down for a couple minutes because he can't do his job because it hurts so bad. Just things like that. And lay evidence can come from whoever. It can come from a spouse. It can come from children. It can come from your parents. It can come from your shipmates or your battle buddies. It doesn't matter who. It just helps. It's extra evidence that says, yeah, this is really a problem. It really bothers him. The most important evidence that will be there is obviously the medical evidence. Lay evidence helps show that it is still a problem or how bad of a problem it was, if that is making any sense. Constantly review your Alta and TRICARE records online if you're still in. After you go to medical, you know, I don't do it compulsively, like every time I go, I don't check, but, you know, once a month I go and check and say, and go review. If I went in that month, I'll go and check that and say, does this really reflect what I want to? While you're in, you want to request a copy of your medical records in paper and or on disk. You want both if you can before you leave the military, and keep that copy. Don't ever lose it. Don't give it away, because I've seen people who had their records lost by medical or by the VA, and that was their only copy, and they were SOL. So make sure you have all your medical records before you go. Get a buddy letter if needed. So this is what I was talking to you about layman evidence. So get a buddy letter. Get someone who had served with you to write an actual letter that says, this guy had these issues while he was in, or at least all the symptoms. You know, technically you're a layman, so you don't technically know, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you're not a doctor, so you can't diagnose, right? So this guy had all the symptoms of this. So they'll write letters for you that will go into your record, and it will go into your claim. Now, you want to talk to your provider about what goes into your record. We kind of talked on this already. So it's the only time where you can tell someone who like very much outranks you what to do for you. You know, it's a service gig for them. So, you know, just make sure, you know, you don't have to be demanding. It's a group effort, so make sure that you both are talking about what goes into your record. And another thing you can do is find out what other veterans with your disability did right or wrong by reading appeals cases. So you see a citation number here, citation NR, whatever. If you go into Google, and actually this video is coming to an end, so I'll start the video with doing that. If you go into Google and you type in, hey, I want to see intervertebral braille disc syndrome, which is the one we're going to look up, and see what other veterans got, if they got it approved or not, and why or why not they got it approved. And you can go there and see all their mistakes. Well, it didn't get approved because they didn't have any medical evidence. Well, okay, you know, and it tells you exactly in there what the appeals court is looking for. So thanks again for watching the video, guys. Please like and subscribe, and leave any questions in the comments below, and then I'll start the second video here.